Hi, this is Jessica Maes, Infusionsoft Certified Consultant, and today I'm going to show you how to pass information from one web form to another hosted web form. The reason I'm referring to a hosted web form here is because if you are familiar with using Infusionsoft, you do know that it is very easy to pass information from one web form to another. There's just a little checkbox during the setup process when you're setting up your web forms. What I'm talking about here is when you have web forms that are out on web pages, which is referred to as a hosted web page. So here's my home page for my website. This over here, this box, is actually an Infusionsoft web form. So that's what I mean by this. So if somebody came to your home page and filled out information and clicked submit, they can then be directed to another page on your website that has another Infusionsoft web form where you may ask if they would like to provide some additional information so that you can better serve them. And then they can click submit and they can move forward. So that's what we're doing here. I've gone ahead and I've built this out, and I will break it down and show you exactly the steps that you have to follow to make this happen. There isn't a ton that you have to do out of the ordinary when you're preparing your first web form. So if you've prepared web forms using Campaign Builder and Infusionsoft before, there isn't any trick that you need to know about, except when you are configuring your first web form, make sure on the Thank You Page tab that you've got the URL where you want people to go once they click submit. I already have this configured, but if you were doing this from scratch, this would default to an Infusionsoft Thank You page, which is fine. But for what we're trying to accomplish here, we have people going to a hosted web page, which in my case would be jessicamaes.com/thank you. So that is the one thing that you really have to be mindful of with that first web form that you're creating. But beyond that, it is the standard process for creating a web form. Web form number 2 is where you really need to do some things to make this happen. The first thing that you have to do is you have to pull out the hidden field snippets. So over here, where you build the web form, you do have a snippet called hidden. I'm going to delete this and put it back in there so you can see exactly how this rolls out. Pull out the hidden field snippet, and you tell Infusionsoft what information it should be gathering on the second web form without actually asking the person who's filling it out to give us that information. Think about this as a game of catch. Web form number 1 is throwing the ball, which in this case would be the information, first name and email address, over to web form number 2. Web form number 2 needs to know what they are looking for and what they need to catch. So they're catching first name and email. The other thing that's super important for this to work is you have to pull out the snippet called HTML right here. You pull it out and you put it at the top of your web form. You get a pop-up box. It is empty. It does require some HTML code copied into this box. I am not a coder. I did not write this code. This is code that you can obtain through the Infusionsoft user guide. And you literally grab this code, you copy it, and you paste it into this box. Now if you're watching this clip on my blog, I do have this code right in the blog post. So you literally copy and paste it into the box. You click save. And once you click save, now your HTML snippet looks like this. This is that same code. I simply copy and pasted it into the box. And then you need to put in whatever information, additional information that you're hoping to gather on the second web form. For demo purposes, I've put in a checkbox. I'm calling it test. And if somebody were to checkbox that, I do have a tag going on the record. The tag is called test. Okay. So the other really important thing that you have to be aware of to make this process work is the second web form. When you're putting it out on your web page, you need to use the JavaScript snippet. If you use the HTML code, the full code, and you put that out on your website, the web form will probably show up. However, this process of passing the information from one form to the other will not work. So you need to use the JavaScript snippet to make exactly what I am demoing for you work. Now, please be aware, if you discover that JavaScript snippet doesn't work on your website, you still can make this work using HTML code, but it will require more steps that I'm giving you here in this demo, and I do have some additional resources right in the blog post so that you can explore that if you have to. But I do find that, by and large, most websites these days do work with JavaScript snippets. So go ahead and try this, and hopefully it will work for you. So now that we have our first web form set up and we have our second web form set up, I'm going to go ahead and demo this for you. Out in the real world, this would probably be sitting out on a web page, but I've just grabbed the link for this web form just to make it quick so that we can demo this. And we'll now land on the on a page that has the second web form on it. You, of course, would want to get this set up in such a way that it looks like it is that it is part of the page. I kept the default background and so forth just so that I could get this pulled together for you for the demo. Of course, you put a little more work into getting this web form with the right background color and so forth. The important thing to notice here is that it is not collecting first name and email address. It actually is, but it is doing so in the background. So somebody does not have to enter their information again. They simply let you know how you might be able to serve their needs even better. They click submit, and you will have whatever thank you page you want them to ultimately end up on right here. Let's now go into that contact record and make sure that this is set up properly and working. Simply going to bring up the contact record associated with the email address that I just entered. Actually, that's not the email address I just used, so let's put in the one that I did so that we can actually look at what was just done. All right. Okay, I'm now in that contact record. I can quickly see if this worked or not by scrolling down to the section called External Web Forms. You can see I've done this twice now today. But I filled out the web form just now, web form number 1 and web form number 2. So it recorded it 1 minute apart. That's how long it took me to get the entire process done. If you were to test this out and you came into the contact record and you only saw history of the first web form being filled out, you would know that the process there's something off about how you've set up the process, and you're going to need to go back through your steps. When only one of the 2 web forms is showing in the history, that shows that the information is not getting passed from the first web form to the second one. So Infusionsoft doesn't know that information literally is not coming over to the second web form. So Infusionsoft does not know to update this particular contact record with that information. The last thing I want to show you is right here is the tag test. That checkbox has that tag on it. So I know that this is working. To recap, our first web form, there isn't a lot out of the ordinary that we have to do, except make sure that we reference the correct URL for the thank you page. On the second web form, we have to pull out the hidden field snippets and put in the appropriate information. We have to pull out the HTML snippet and put in the code that I have given you. And for the second web form, we need to get that on our website using the JavaScript snippet. The last thing I'll say about this process is you absolutely want to test it before you take it live to the masses. It does take a little bit of practice to get all of the pieces in place. So you're going to want to follow these steps to get things set up, but make sure you test. Fill out the forms, check the contact record, make sure the information is showing up, and if not, retrace your steps and figure out what needs to be tweaked. But eventually, you will get the hang of it. This will work beautifully, and you are going to love it. This concludes how to pass information from one web form to another hosted web form.